Today, I want to delve a little deeper into the complex world of artificial intelligence. Yes, everyone says it's the future, but it cannot actually solve that age-old problem of garbage in, garbage out. And to solve that one, you're going to need to make sure your data is in good shape. But where does a business go when they have a problem like this? And who are they going to call? No, not Ghostbusters, man. Some of you just can't help yourself. But like Kane in the Kung Fu TV series, I'm on a quest to discover understanding and maybe get into a few adventures along the way. But today, my search led me to Allegion, which is an Austin-based technology company. And they provide an AI training data platform and services that span the AI lifecycle, integrating human intelligence into the creation of high-quality training data, model scoring and validation, and exception handling. So essentially, the Allegion platform helps enterprises accelerate confidence in their AI initiatives and mitigate their risk, all by using proven approaches. But why is this a big deal, you might say? Well, through to 2022, 85% of AI projects are expected to deliver erroneous outcomes due to bias in data. And if you get over the bias problem, you've got algorithms or the teams responsible for managing them. And these aren't my words, this is all according to research firm Gartner. And many of these errors can be attributed to problems with AI training data. And to get AI systems off the ground, training data actually needs to be trustworthy and high quality, requiring labeling, clarification, cleanup and normalization. Otherwise, it's not going to be usable in enterprise AI development. But the big question for business leaders, of course, is, well, how do I actually get there? Well, buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Austin, Texas, so we can speak with Nathaniel Gates, CEO and co-founder of Allegion, who's going to tell us how Allegion is accelerating enterprise AI initiatives by validating, labeling, and training data at any scale, but at guaranteed quality. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Nathaniel. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Nathaniel Gates, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company headquartered in Austin, Texas, called Allegion. And Allegion is in the AI space. We help companies create and train algorithmic models for supervised learning. We help companies test the models that they have against validated data sets or real-time validation. And then we also help with real-time exception handling. So if in production a real-time model kicks out something that's too low of confidence, we can actually have a human interact with that. And that's kind of the heart of what our application is. We're able to distribute work both to AI-based judgment as well as human-based and human intelligence-based judgment, and bring those two efforts together for the value for the customer. So that's kind of what we do. We're here in Austin, Texas, and we have a group also in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, who does a lot of our human side of things as well. So.
Now, before we talk about Allegion, I wanted to try and explore a few of the problems that are out there at the moment. I mean, for example, according to Gartner, I think through to 2022, 85% of AI projects are expected to deliver erroneous outcomes due to bias inside the data. Algorithms or the teams responsible for managing them, and most of all these errors can be attributed to problems with AI training data. And to get AI systems off the ground, training data needs to be trustworthy and high quality right from the beginning. And of course that requires labeling, classifications, cleanup and normalization, all to be usable in an enterprise AI development. But can you set the scene a little and tell the listeners this very real struggle that businesses are having both now and they're going to encounter in the future too, to get to this AI promised land that they're repeatedly told is the future?
Sure. Yeah, the AI promised land is out there, but there are many valleys and peaks that these organizations are going to have to weather in order to get to where they're hoping to end up. And we see it all. We see the immaturity of the marketplace itself and how they're addressing artificial intelligence, how they're chasing machine learning as a value proposition. And we see companies that are very mature, and we see companies that are very immature. And we can give you examples of those types of approaches. But more often than not, because our focus is on enterprise, we see very large companies that are taking decidedly immature routes towards machine learning. Oftentimes we're dealing with small data science teams within those large organizations that are trying to solve just one specific problem. And this is very common where we'll see a lot of fracturing within the enterprise where they have multiple competing data science teams utilizing the same source data, trying to solve many different problems. And there's very little interaction between those data science teams, and you might find that surprising. But what we see these data science teams do is just throw a lot of things against the wall and see what sticks. They might be trying to solve a problem, and so they have an idea how an algorithm could use their source data to infer a potential solution. So they test it in a very limited scope, and then they measure what the value of that output was, and then they either discard it or they move forward. And oftentimes the baby is thrown out with the bathwater, where they found the algorithm or they found the inference to be beneath the accuracy or confidence level that they required for an ROI or for a production value. But really they measured it incorrectly. And to your point, there's many different ways that bias could have creeped in there to poison the well to some extent, where there would have been no capacity for value out of that project because the prerequisites that or steps that they skipped along the way to ensure that it was trained correctly. So I'm happy to jump into an example or two of that if that would help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking from a business leader point of view, anyone listening now, if you could tell me more about how you believe the data set preparation and what that should actually look like so people can have an idea of what to look out for. Well,
the biggest advantage that these big companies have is that they have the source data. They have the data in which to train with, right? And that's their largest advantage from being disrupted, being caught from behind by an up-and-coming startup that is targeting that one value proposition within their industry. So these CIOs and CDOs know that they have the strongest advantage because they hold the data. The concern and the trick then is how can they then use that data to train their algorithms and their models to the point where they have a competitive advantage. What we see companies tripping over is that they try to train very quickly and be able to measure very quickly the value of that outcome. So they take a very limited data set and then they measure the results from that very limited data set, and they either, again, see that it achieved value or it did not, and then they move on. But the problem is the vast majority of the value in training comes with scale. So very early on, with a small amount of training, you're able to get your model up to a point of confidence. So let's say it's a chatbot, and you are using all of the customer service interactions that you've had in your business for the last few years as source data. And you take a sampling of that, and you train it for just maybe the top 4 or 5 types of inbound inquiries that customer service faces. Well, if you're able to train to those 4 or 5, then very quickly you can get the model confidence on a chatbot being able to come up with, what the customer service requirement is pretty quickly. But the problem is the real value, the hundreds and hundreds of customer service inquiries that are outside of those 4 main channels, right? In order to train all of those, it takes a huge amount of data, and it takes a huge amount of data training. So it really is kind of the concepts of boulders, rocks, and pebbles, where the boulders are very easy to train for and see the value out of that. But the models don't really achieve ROI or market dominance until you start training at the rocks and pebbles level.